Well, with all the sensationalism and misinformation about radiation in the wake of the Fukushima nuclear disaster, I guess it was only a matter of time before some complete idiot went the other extreme. And who better to be the voice of complete idiocy than Ann Coulter?
But you are not down on radiation poisoning.
Well, it's not me. I'm citing a stunning number of physicists, and from the New York Times and the Times of London, there's a growing body of evidence that radiation in excess of what the government says are the minimum amounts you should be exposed to are actually good for you and reduce cases of cancer.
Okay, let's talk real science here for a moment. There's a growing body of evidence that tiny amounts of radiation, emphasis on tiny, can be good for you and protect you against cancer, but it's far from confirmed. The reason why is that these levels are so small, it's hard to get good data out of the statistical noise. It does appear that Coulter is correct about the current government approach being wrong. This is called the linear no-threshold model, and it means that any radiation above the background levels is harmful. The model she's talking about is called hormesis, and this is where a tiny amount actually decreases your chances of getting diseases like cancer, but very quickly there's a point of diminishing returns. The curve moves back up, crosses back over the line, and above that line, radiation is bad for you again. But these aren't the only two models. Coulter is employing a false dichotomy. The third model, which has far better support, is the linear threshold model, which states that there is no additional risk, but no measurable benefit either, to increased radiation up to a certain point, the threshold. Then it starts being dangerous. Keep this in mind as we listen to more of this stupid woman.
The New York Times science section, for example, a few years ago reported on a study from Canada where all these women who had had tuberculosis got an inordinate number of chest x-rays. Well, their breast cancer rate was lower than the general population.
Okay, maybe, but chest x-rays don't actually have that much radiation, and they're being made to use less and less all the time. So again, we're talking about a very tiny amount of radiation here, and even at that, there just aren't enough of these women in the study to call it confirmed. Lower than the general population is very vague, and may just be statistical noise.
There were apartments put up in Taiwan in 1993 that accidentally contained an inordinate amount of cobalt-60, a radioactive substance. After 16 years, 10,000 occupants of these buildings being hit with 5 times what the government says is the minimum amount you should be hit with. The number of cancer cases they had, there were about 10,000 occupants, was only 5 cases.
Coulter is using a very early analysis here. The follow-up studies just do not support her. In fact, they found no difference at all in cancer rates in those over 30 and significantly increased rates in those 30 and younger.
Why isn't the established medical organizations or establishment saying that, some kind of radiation can ward off infections? Why aren't they saying that?
Well, they are. They're not getting a lot of media attention for it.
Sorry, but it's just more complicated than that. As Dr. David Gorski pointed out in the Science-Based Medicine blog, the individual studies done to date have been inconclusive due to the problem of statistical sampling. A combined analysis of these studies did show a very slight decrease in cancer, but it wasn't enough of a decrease to be statistically significant.
This guy, the coolest cat in my column is this Bernard Cohen at the University of Pittsburgh. He did a study of 90% of the counties in the U.S., and he looked at levels of radon, radioactive substance from the earth, and lung cancer rates. And they were inversely related so dramatically that it couldn't be explained by cigarette
some radiation
smoking.
in the body acts as an agent to ward off cancer.
That's many scientists believe.
The problem is, it's been established that this Cohen guy didn't even control for smoking when he did his lung cancer study. A reanalysis of these data that did control for smoking showed no such correlation in lung cancer rates among non-smokers.
So by your account, we should all be heading for the nuclear reactor and leaking and kind of sunbathing out there in front of... Come on.
Well,
but I don't know if it would be responsible at this point to make that a hard news thing. It's okay to kick it around like we are.
No, I think you should have some of these physicists on.
Well,
look, the one you had on last night was pretty copacetic about what's happening in Japan.
Listen to my point. You have to be responsible in a sense that the prevailing wisdom is there is a level of radiation that's going to hurt you and perhaps kill you.
Gee, how idiotic do you have to be when Bill O'Reilly is the voice of reason? The funny thing is, just a few months ago, she was complaining about the radiation danger from the new TSA body scanners. But hey, I guess now that radiation's good for us, we should all be lining up to have the TSA ogle our junk. And if you think that's a good idea, you just might be as dumb as Ann Coulter.